I never thought a simple weekend at home would turn into a life-changing phone call. It started like any other Saturday morning. I was making pancakes while my 17-year-old son, Jason, was in his room working on a school project. We were both pretty quiet that morning, the kind of peaceful silence you don't realize you're enjoying until it's shattered. Around 9:30 a.m., I heard someone pounding on the front door. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor had come by to borrow something or ask for help. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw Patricia, our HOA president, and the same woman who had already tried to steal my family's lake months earlier, standing there with her hand raised, ready to knock again. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood a uniformed officer, Sheriff Davidson, a good guy who always waved when he drove past, but had no idea what kind of trouble Patricia could stir up. I opened the door just enough to speak without fully letting them in. "Morning," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What can I do for you?" Patricia didn't even try to hide her smugness. "We're doing an inspection of all properties to ensure compliance with HOA standards," she announced like she was reading from a script. "And as president, I have the right to enter any property, if necessary." I glanced at the sheriff, who looked slightly uncomfortable. "Is this about the grass again?" I asked. "Because I mowed it 3 days ago." "It's not about the grass," Patricia said sharply. "It's about safety and compliance. And we'd be done faster if you'd just let us in." I shook my head. "You don't have the authority to enter my home without a warrant. You know that." Patricia reached into her bag and pulled out a key, a master key, I assumed. She stepped forward and tried inserting it into my lock. It didn't work. She frowned, jiggled it a bit, then tried again. Still nothing. "That's not going to open the door," I told her calmly. "I changed the locks after the last time you inspected my garage without permission." She turned red. "You can't just change the locks on your own house." I shrugged. "Actually, I can. Especially since that key was never legally issued to you in the first place." Sheriff Davidson cleared his throat. "Ma'am, unless he gives consent or we have a warrant, I can't force entry." That's when Patricia's face twisted in frustration, and she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911, she declared dramatically. "This man is refusing to comply with HOA regulations and is obstructing an official inspection." The sheriff gave me a look like, "Really?" and sighed before stepping back as Patricia dialed. I stayed calm, but my mind was racing. I knew how these calls could spiral. I also knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but I still wanted to make sure everything was documented. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Within minutes, another unit arrived. Officer Ramirez, someone I recognized from town, got out of the car and approached with a neutral expression. Patricia launched into her story immediately. "This man is preventing an official HOA inspection. He changed the locks and won't allow access to his home. I believe he may be hiding illegal activity inside." Ramirez looked between us, clearly unimpressed. "Sir, is that true?" I shook my head. "No, officer. I simply exercised my right to control access to my private residence. The HOA does not have the legal authority to enter homes without consent or a court order." He nodded slowly, then turned to Patricia. "Do you have a written policy stating that HOA has the right to enter private residences?" She hesitated. "Well, it's implied under Section 4B of the Community Guidelines." He interrupted gently. "Implied doesn't count. Unless there's a specific clause approved by the homeowners and filed with the county, you don't have that authority." Patricia's jaw tightened, but she kept talking. "Fine, but there's more. This man recently posted a video online showing environmental damage caused by my fiancé and me. He's clearly trying to ruin our reputations." Now Ramirez looked bored. "So, you called the police because he made a video?" She crossed her arms. "I called the police because he's harassing me and interfering with my duties as HOA president." Ramirez turned to me. "Sir, are you following her around? Making videos every time she leaves her house?" "No," I replied honestly. "But I do document interactions when they involve illegal behavior or false accusations against me." He nodded. "Then I don't see a harassment case here." Patricia's frustration boiled over. "Then arrest him for obstruction." Ramirez barely held back a sigh. Ma'am, unless you have a court order, he's not obstructing anything. He's standing on his porch, minding his own business. With that, both officers began walking back to their cars. Patricia followed, still ranting under her breath. As soon as they left, I went back inside and closed the door. My heart was finally slowing down, but then my phone rang. It was Jason. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling. "Did you know Mom was trying to reach me?" My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "She said she couldn't get through to your phone. She was trying to tell me about Grandma. She collapsed and was rushed to the hospital." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Jason had been on the phone with his mom when Patricia showed up. While she was demanding entry, calling 911, and creating chaos, my ex-wife was trying to reach him with urgent news about his grandmother. If the cops had taken longer, if I had gotten arrested, if Jason had missed that call entirely. I sat down hard on the couch, guilt washing over me. In hindsight, it seemed almost poetic. Patricia had spent months trying to take away my land, my lake, my peace. And now, unintentionally, she nearly took away something far more important, a chance to be there for my family in a moment of crisis. I stared at my phone, replaying the footage in my head. Not for drama, not for revenge, but so I'd never forget how close I came to missing one of the most important calls of my life. All because of one woman's obsession with control. I never imagined that my HOA president would show up at my door before sunrise, claiming she had the right to enter my home with a master key she bought online. But there she was, Vivian Baxter, standing on my porch like she owned the place, camera rolling and drama brewing. It all started the night before, when an envelope slid under my front door with about as much subtlety as a sledgehammer. The bright yellow HOA letterhead practically screamed trouble before I even picked it up. A $500 fine for a fence violation. According to subsection 12B of the Fairview Heights Guidelines, my perfectly normal wooden fence was 3 inches too tall. I crumpled the paper and tossed it onto the counter, muttering something unprintable about bureaucratic nonsense, while my son Dylan shook his head and stabbed at his orange chicken with unnecessary force. Then came the pounding, not knocking, pounding like someone was trying to break down the door with their bare fists. Through the peephole, I saw Vivian in all her suburban glory. Oversized designer sunglasses despite the setting sun, a glittery handbag worth more than my monthly mortgage, and that ridiculous neon green key dangling from her manicured fingers like some kind of talisman. She was dressed in what I can only describe as HOA warfare attire, a blazer so stiff it could stand on its own, heels high enough to qualify as weapons, and platinum blonde hair sprayed into submission. She thrust the key forward like it was Excalibur itself. "This," she announced with the gravitas of someone unveiling the cure for cancer, "is a universal master key. I purchased it from a very reputable online security firm. It can open any standard residential lock, and since you've ignored my notice about your fence violation, I'm here to conduct a thorough inspection of your property for additional infractions." The absurdity of the situation would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame, making myself as immovable as possible. "That's fascinating, Vivian. Did this reputable online security firm also sell you a bridge in Brooklyn? Because that key looks like something from a glow stick factory." Her face flushed red beneath her makeup, and she actually tried to insert the key into my lock. It didn't even fit properly. The thing was too thick and the wrong shape entirely. She jiggled it frantically, muttering under her breath about defective products and online reviews, while I watched with a mixture of amusement and disgust. "Ma'am, you need to leave my property," I said firmly, keeping my voice level despite the anger bubbling in my chest. "You have no legal right to enter my home, master key or not." That's when she pulled out her phone with a flourish that would make a magician jealous. "We'll see about that," she hissed. "I'm calling the police right now. You're threatening me. This is harassment. I'm the HOA president, and you're preventing me from doing my duties." Behind me, Dylan's phone buzzed, and I heard him slip away to his room. I didn't think much of it at the time, figured he was just giving us space for the impending drama. 911, what's your emergency?" came the calm, professional voice on the other end. Vivian launched into a tirade that would have been impressive if it weren't completely fabricated. Yes, hello, this is Vivian Baxter, president of the Fairview Heights Homeowners Association. I'm at 47 Maple Street, and the homeowner, Ryan Caldwell, is threatening me. He's being aggressive and won't let me perform my lawful duties as HOA president. I need officers here immediately. I remained silent, knowing that anything I said would just fuel her performance. What I didn't know was that 3 blocks away, at the emergency dispatch center, my son Dylan was listening to every word with a grin spreading across his face. The dispatcher's response was interesting to say the least. Ma'am, can you describe the nature of the threat? Are you in immediate physical danger? Vivian stumbled over her words, clearly not expecting to be questioned. Well, he's standing there menacingly, and he called my master key fake. There was a pause then. Ma'am, did you say master key? Can you tell me more about this key? Is it registered with the National Locksmith Guild? I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Vivian's face went through a spectacular range of emotions: confusion, indignation, and finally, flustered panic. The what? I don't. It's from masterkeysirect.com. They said it was guaranteed to work. Another pause. Ma'am, I need to know the make and model of this key for our records. We've had reports of fraudulent locksmith tools being sold online. Vivian actually dropped her designer bag, scattering its contents across my porch. Lipsticks rolled in every direction, and at least 3 different HOA citation pads spilled out. I don't understand what the make and model, it's just a key, a master key, the website said. She was stomping now, her heels clicking like angry castanets. Through all of this, more neighbors had started to peek out from their windows and doors. Curtains twitched, faces appeared behind glass, everyone eager to witness Vivian's latest power trip. She seemed oblivious to her growing audience, too focused on arguing with the dispatcher about the legitimacy of her glow-stick-colored key. My phone buzzed with a text. Dad, got this. That's when I realized what was happening. My brilliant, slightly devious son was handling this call from his dispatcher desk. Part of me wanted to tell him to transfer it to someone else to avoid any conflict of interest. But a bigger part, the part that had dealt with Vivian's tyranny for the past 2 years, wanted to see where this would go. Vivian was pacing in front of my house now, justifying wildly as she tried to explain to the dispatcher why she absolutely needed to enter my home right this very moment. Her voice carried across the neighborhood. This is about maintaining standards, property values, the integrity of our community. As sirens began to wail in the distance, Vivian suddenly stopped pacing. A slow, calculating smile spread across her face as she reached into her bag and pulled out a small camera. She positioned it carefully, aiming it at my front door, at me, at the approaching police lights. Whatever she was planning, I had a sinking feeling that her ridiculous master key was just the beginning of tonight's drama. Officer Greg Turner stepped out of his patrol car with a weary expression of someone who dealt with Vivian Baxter one too many times. He was a veteran cop, the kind with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that deepened when he saw her standing there with her camera. I recognized him from previous neighborhood disputes. He'd always been fair, but tonight something felt different. Vivian immediately launched into victim mode, twisting a lace handkerchief she'd produced from somewhere and dabbing at completely dry eyes. Handling the messier aspects of this transition, I met King Wells, Meridian's legal expert. He looked up and smiled as Mia introduced us. The infamous Peyton, he said. Talon's been singing your praises all morning. Infamous? I asked with a smirk. You have the perfect combination of local knowledge and ruthless pragmatism, he explained, gesturing to the stack of employment contracts in front of him. I've been going through these, and let me tell you, this family has been creative. Nepotism clauses, guaranteed salary increases, termination protections that would make a union boss weep. Can we break them? Oh, absolutely, King replied. Especially once we document the performance issues and potential fraud. The question is how brutal you want to be. My phone buzzed again, another text from Seoul. Asterisk, Dad's freaking out. Says someone's been asking questions about the company. Do you know anything? Asterisk. I showed the message to King and Mia. Word travels fast, King said. We haven't even announced the acquisition yet. Mia nodded. Small business community. Someone probably noticed our people sniffing around the financials. Another text came through, this time from Dad. Asterisk, need to talk to you urgently. Something's happening at work. Asterisk. They're panicking, I said. Good, King replied. Panic makes people sloppy. They'll start making mistakes trying to cover their tracks, which makes our job easier. Talon appeared in the doorway then. How's our new team member settling in? Just reviewing the Lane Industries situation, Mia said. Excellent. Peyton, walk with me. He led me to his corner office, which had a breathtaking view of the downtown skyline. I want to be clear about something, Talon said, closing the door behind us. This isn't just business for me. Beau Lane has been coasting on his father's reputation for 2 decades while running a good company into the ground. The employees deserve better leadership. What about the family members on payroll? His voice hardened. They've been stealing from their own company, from their employees' futures. Beau hasn't done a legitimate day's work in years. Robin's so-called administrative role appears to consist entirely of planning office parties and ordering lunch. He pulled up a file on his computer. Look at this. The company's profit margin has dropped 60% in the past 5 years, while executive compensation has increased 40%. They're literally bleeding the business dry. My phone rang again, Mom, this time. Talon nodded. Put it on speaker. Peyton, honey, where are you? She said, her voice tight with worry. Your father is beside himself. Someone from some consulting firm has been asking questions about the business. What kind of questions? Financial records, employee contracts, that sort of thing. Beau thinks someone might be trying to buy the company. Her voice cracked. With everything I'm going through health-wise, this stress is just too much. I glanced at Talon, who was smirking. I'm sure it'll work out, I said calmly. Mom wants me to come home. We need to talk as a family. Sol thinks we should hire a lawyer. A lawyer isn't a bad idea, Talon murmured. Really? Mom said, brightening. Oh, thank goodness. I knew you'd help us figure this out. You always do. After I hung up, Talon leaned back in his chair. They have no idea, do they? None. Perfect. That gives us the advantage we need. He handed me another folder. These are the termination packages we're prepared to offer. Generous severance, positive references, the works, assuming they go quietly. I opened the folder. The severance amounts were fair, even generous. More than they deserved, considering what they'd been doing. And if they don't go quietly, then we let King handle it. Criminal fraud charges, civil suits, public embarrassment. Their choice. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a group text to me, Mom, Dad, and Sol. Asterisk Dad. Family meeting tonight, 7 p.m. We need to discuss the situation at work. Asterisk. Asterisk Sol. I'll be there. This is serious. Asterisk. Asterisk Mom. Peyton, please come home. We need you. Asterisk. I showed the messages to Talon. Well, he said, looks like you're going to have an interesting evening. I didn't go to their family meeting. Instead, I spent the evening in King's office going through every financial document Meridian had pulled from Lane Industries. What I found made my stomach turn. Look at this, I said, pointing to a series of transfers on King's computer screen. SL Consulting had received payments every month for the past 2 years, but there was no corresponding work product. No invoices, no deliverables, nothing. King leaned over my shoulder. That's not even the worst part. He pulled up another file. Expense reports. Company credit card charges for designer handbags, spa treatments, and expensive dinners. All approved by Dad and categorized as business development or client entertainment. This one's my favorite, King said, clicking on a charge from last month. $1,500 at Nordstrom, labeled as professional wardrobe for client meetings. It was worse than I'd imagined. They weren't just mismanaging the company, they were looting it. And now, I had the power to take it all away. And judging by the officer's grim expression as he approached, this one was going to be worse than a doctored photo of my fence. The sound of Vivian's voice carried across the street from her house. She was on the phone again, and even from this distance, I could hear her shrill tone cutting through the morning air. Yes, I need to report a conspiracy. They're planning to undermine my authority. This is harassment of an elected HOA official. Dylan's text came through right after. She's really going for it. Claims you're inciting a riot. Want me to play the dictionary definition of riot? Despite everything, I had to smile. My son was handling this beautifully, using Vivian's own dramatic tendencies against her. But as the officer got closer and I saw the papers in his hand, my smile faded. This was escalating faster than any of us had anticipated, and Vivian showed no signs of backing down. Sophia squeezed my shoulder as I walked toward my fate. Remember, she whispered, we've got evidence now. She's not the only one who can document everything. Behind us, Henry was already on his phone, rallying the neighbors. The battle lines were being drawn, and for the first time since this mess started, I felt like we might actually have a chance. The question was whether we could expose Vivian's corruption before she managed to destroy my life and terrorize anyone else who dared to stand up to her. As I met the officer in my driveway, I could see Vivian watching from her window. That camera of hers was probably recording every moment. Let her watch, I thought. She had no idea what was coming. The Fairview Heights Community Center had never seen such a packed house for an emergency HOA meeting. Every folding chair was taken, and people lined the walls like they were at the final round of a championship fight. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. And at the center of it all stood Vivian Baxter, remote control in hand like it was some kind of royal scepter. She dressed for war, in a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her platinum blonde hair shellacked into a helmet that defied gravity. The massive projection screen behind her flickered to life, and what appeared made my stomach drop to my shoes. There I was, or at least someone who looked vaguely like me, spray painting a fence in the most obnoxious shade of neon pink imaginable. The video was grainy, clearly shot from a distance, but in the dim lighting of the community center, it might as well have been evidence in a murder trial. Ladies and gentlemen, Vivian announced, her voice dripping with false concern, this is what Ryan Caldwell does under cover of darkness. This is the man who claims to be a respectable member of our community. The crowd erupted in murmurs, and I caught sight of several neighbors shaking their heads. Outside, I could hear chanting, and through the windows, I saw something that made my heart sink even further. A group of residents, maybe 15 or 20 strong, marching in front of my house with signs. One read, "Evict the vandal." Another proclaimed, "Save our property values." Someone had even gone through the trouble of making a banner with my face crossed out by a big red X. The whole scene was surreal, like something straight out of a bad movie about suburban warfare. Sophia stood up beside me, her tablet clutched in her hands like a shield. "I'd like to present a counter-argument," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The projection screen flickered as she connected her device, and suddenly, Vivian's emails filled the display. There they were in black and white, discussions about discretionary spending from the HOA Beautification Fund, receipts for luxury handbags charged to the HOA credit card, and most damning of all, an email thread discussing the purchase of her ridiculous master key using community funds. $7.99, Sophia read aloud, for a universal access device that turned out to be a glorified toy. The room went silent, except for the sound of Vivian's clipboard hitting the floor with a loud clatter. Henry stood up next, his weathered face flushed with righteous anger. "While we're sharing evidence," he growled, "let's talk about the Ring camera footage from Tuesday night." The screen changed again, showing crystal-clear video of Vivian sneaking into the HOA office at 2 a.m., her neon green key dangling from her fingers like some kind of trophy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. More screenshots followed, photos of Venmo transactions, falsified violation reports, and a secret list labeled Priority Enforcement Targets, with my name at the top. Sophia pointed at the screen. And here's where she discussed Project Clean Sweep with the treasurer, mentioning Ryan specifically. Brian wrote, "You're contaminating the neighborhood culture, just like Frank Morrison did." I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just about a fence violation or even personal vendettas. It was systemic, organized. harassment with financial motivation lurking beneath the surface. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Sophia quickly pulled up her HOA account on the laptop. "Look at this," she said, pointing to an email. "Vivian sent this to the board at 2 a.m. She's proposing an emergency assessment, a $1,000 fee per household to cover legal costs related to addressing covenant violations." She clicked open the attachment, and there it was. My name at the top of a list labeled Priority Enforcement Targets, with a note about using the funds to pursue legal action against me personally. The sirens grew louder in the distance. Through Sophia's window, we could see a patrol car turning onto our street. "That's for you," Henry muttered grimly. "Bet you anything," she called in another complaint. Sophia was already moving, grabbing her tablet, and heading for the door. "I'm getting video of whatever happens," she said. "Ryan, do you have your son on speed dial? We might need his help if she's calling 911 again." I nodded, already texting Dylan a heads up. His response was immediate. "Already see the call coming in. Same caller ID. She's claiming you're disturbing the peace by conspiring against her. I'll handle it." It was happening all over again. Vivian orchestrating another performance, trying to make herself the victim while dragging everyone else into her web of lies. But this time we were ready. We had proof. And we weren't backing down.